This came across my desk, and it was from CNBC, and they were saying that it was more expensive to be single. More expensive to be single. More expensive to be single. That's what they said. That's what they said. I have not watched it yet. I wanted to share it with you guys and react to it in real time. Make sure y'all get a like up for the algorithm. I appreciate you, Lunchbox. I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly.
Nearly half of all US adults are single today. That number has been steadily rising for several decades. Nearly 70% of men and about 65% of women were married in 1960.
Now remember, when we're having this conversation, when you're looking at data and statistics, they don't measure it the same way that you do out here in these streets. They don't measure it the same way that you do out here in these streets. They don't consider being in a relationship as not being single. So when I have a conversation with y'all, and make sure y'all tap into the Q show tonight, when I have a conversation with y'all and I say, listen, either you're married or you're single, there is no in between. They don't believe in kitty love. They don't believe that you can write a note and say, hey, would you go with me? Yes or no, maybe so. Can you take me to the dance? You my boy. They don't do girlfriend, boyfriend. The only thing they do is whether you're married or you're single, and that's the only way in which they can parse through the data to come to a conclusion. All right? Remember that.
Today, it's just over 50% of men and around 50% of women who are married.
Young people are getting married later, if they get married at all. There are also people, of course, in unmarried partnerships, but I think that a lot of that really is people who are not ever going to be permanently partnered.
117.6 million Americans aged 18 and over never married, are divorced, or widowed.
Now remember, I think we have somewhere around 350 million people in the United States of America, and then a large portion of those people are children. A large portion of those people are children. So now we have to parse through. We don't know how many children in the United States of America that's under the age of 18 exactly, but they know for a fact that 117 million people over the age of 18 are never married, have never been married, are divorced or widowed. So no matter what bucket that you put it in, basically 46.4% of adults, according to what it is that they're presenting to us, are single.
They're not single for the usual reasons that you hear. Oh, there's not enough marriageable men for women or any of those kinds of reasons. But instead, that they find single life fulfilling.
As someone single living in a major city like New York, it's definitely very stressful when it comes to personal finances. You have the full burden on your shoulders. So I would say the majority of my friends who are single.
I don't know whether to parse this through and make an educated guess or hypothesis about why he's single or not. I don't know whether I should be making an educated guess about why this man is single. This man said it is hard for a pimp out here when you're trying to get that money for the rent. It's hard out here for a pimp when you're trying to get that money for the rent. Let me rewind that real quick. Give me a second.
Find single life fulfilling.
As someone single living in a major city like New York, it's definitely very stressful when it comes to personal finances. You have the full burden on your shoulders. So I would say the majority of my friends who are single and live alone, they're very stressed about the cost of living.
A 2023 survey revealed that the top three...
As a grown man, I'm going to just be honest with you, family. I am never going to be stressed about the costs that's associated with being single. That's just me. I come from a different era. I'm from a different space. I'm in a whole nother world. And I am a man that has been married for the past 19 and a half years, going on 20 years. I will be married for 2 decades plus since I was 22 years old. Let me tell you something, bro. As a man, I will never, ever be worried about, because you can lower your lifestyle, fam. I can go and get a roommate. I can go and I'm a regular person just like everybody else. I make regular money just like everybody else. I can go and get a roommate. I'm never going to be interdependent on somebody else. That don't mean that you're not going to work. That don't mean that you can't contribute into the household. That don't mean that I'm not vetting you effectively as far as being equally yoked, but I'm not going to depend on you for my survival. Never.
Stressors for single Americans, excluding Gen Z, were all financial. 39% said they were stressed about the general state of the economy. 38% said it was their long-term financial future, while 35% blamed the effects of inflation.
So everybody is complaining about money. For single people, male, female, everybody is stressed about money.
There's a lot of consternation, especially at early ages and later ages, with being single and independent, and how much you might need to ask others for help, both as an optional idea or as a literal idea to ensure you're going to be okay.
So what's causing so much financial anxiety among single Americans? Singles tax is a newly coined term referring to the financial burdens that are uniquely incurred by single people.
I definitely think there is a singles tax. It's much more expensive to be single than to be in a relationship.
If you're single and living alone, you don't get the economies of scale. So instead of having a partner to split expenses with, you cover everything yourself.
So basically, let me tell you what they're saying. They're saying it's a singles tax. I've never heard of this before in my entire life. This is the first time that I've ever heard of it. The first time that I've ever, they're saying it's a single, but you know how they're explaining it? They're breaking it down like a black tax. Have you ever heard of the black tax? The black tax isn't a real tax, right? The black tax is more or less like an expectation based off of how society standards are within that particular culture. So let me give you an example. An example of a black tax is, if I make it and I become successful, it's now my responsibility to come back and get my family and buy my mama a house and all of this other type of stuff. It's now my responsibility to be able to loan all of my people money, right? It's now my responsibility to come back to the hood and make sure that I show love and get back to the people and all of that, right? That's the idea of a black tax, and that you then feel guilty of going by yourself, and instead of you evolving based off of the people that you surround yourself with, you now become indebted to the people that then want to take credit for your success, as though we all don't have an individual life to live. And now they're trying to say it's a singles tax, right? And so the singles tax is, well, you don't get as many benefits because you can't have an economy of scale. You can't then leverage having a person that is living with you to benefit financially as a result, because it is much easier for two people to pull their weight than one. Let's continue.
You cover everything yourself.
Take a look at South Carolina, which ranks right in the middle among all states in terms of cost of living. MIT calculates that the typical expenses for two working adults with no children total around $47,483 a year. By contrast, a single adult with no children has estimated expenses of $29,880 annually.
So they're saying that the more that you have, as far as two people, the cheaper it then becomes for you to be able to live a regular American life. Single person have to spend basically $30,000 in order for them to be able to do the same thing as two working adults that then bring in multiple streams of income, and it only costs you an additional $18,000, according to what this is saying, in that particular state, for you to be able to do the same things and survive. So then you become interdependent on each other, and you save a lot of money as a result of it, and being in a relationship, or AKA married. This is what they're telling you. Now, they're not adding in context, lifestyle, dating. You want to live in a big house. You don't want to minimize your expenses and all of this other type of stuff. I don't know what they're using in order to justify this calculation, but we just going to use what it is that they're saying as a talking point in order to illustrate our point, all right?
That means a single individual has at least $6,000 more in expenses per year compared to individuals who are splitting their bills with their partner.
I have to cover all of my living expenses, medical costs.
I don't know how to comment on this without making an assumption and a hypothesis as to the type of people that we dealing with on here, y'all. Hold on. I don't know how to just go through and just take the data and break it down, y'all. We gonna have to add the context as to who's communicating with us and why they so interdependent on somebody else in order for them to survive. What do you mean your medical expenses? Dog, bro, medical expenses? What do you mean? I don't need to be on your healthcare coverage. I got my own healthcare coverage. Dog, I got my own healthcare coverage. Come on, man. Let's we gonna let this play for a little bit. I want to hear what they gotta say.
Travel expenses, food, etc. Like everything is on you. There's
Eat
really
less,
no splitting
homie.
the bill, which is what's so nice about having a partner or being in a relationship.
Break down the typical expense even further, and you can see that nearly every type of expenses, apart from medical, is cheaper per person for couples who have the luxury of splitting the check.
But the problem with this and the context that goes into this is that often at times you don't have a person that is equally carrying their weight. So then it becomes more burdensome for the guy, often at times who makes the majority of the money in a relationship, to then have to carry the other person. And so how does that work out? Because then you're just basically on a retirement plan and you can work part-time and still get the benefits of being in a relationship. See, this is the part that they don't explain to you. They don't give you the additional context. Shout out to you. I'm definitely going to be reading that super chat shortly. They don't give you additional context to help you to understand why it makes sense and why it doesn't make sense. See, this would be a perfect analogy. Shout out to Big Hertification. I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly. They don't really give you the context by saying, well, the burden is really on the man because then the woman decides that she want to have children. And so you can say, well, two people, it costs them less per person in order to have healthcare coverage because you get more people on one form of coverage, what makes it cheaper per person. But then if one person is carrying the majority of the burden in order to make sure that their healthcare coverage is taken care of, then the other person is not saying that they want to contribute into the household, how does that then justify for you then being able to make sure that you're taking care of things from an economies of scale perspective, right? This is the context. This is why you need people to understand how the system works and how money works. See, if everybody made the exact same amount of money, if me and you, right, you make $100,000 a year, I make $100,000 a year, and we both are contributing equally, meaning that you're on my healthcare coverage, but you didn't need healthcare coverage, but all of our money go into one pot, then we can start to have that conversation. But see, the problem in these conversations and the reason why it's so difficult for us to have this in truth, not your truth, not my truth, but in truth, is because for most of y'all, what's yours is y'all's, but what's hers is hers. So I can't tell you as a person that coach people on a regular basis, how many people that I run into or how many people I have a conversation with. And the guys say, man, I would want for my girl to retire. He plans on working for the rest of his life. And I say, okay, well, what is she bringing to the table and how much money is she making? And how does that contribute into what it is that you're looking to do as far as retirement long term? And he said, oh, I don't worry about her money. She could do whatever she wants with her money. But then he has the additional cost and burden in order to carry her through in healthcare coverage and feeding her, additional heating costs. The house got to be bigger. Now they want kids, all of this stuff, right? And so when we're talking about being successfully married or successfully in a relationship, single people don't truly understand that economy of scale when it comes to it because they don't have the full context of what it takes in order to be successfully married. When I say on the other channel, when I had a conversation, and I say, no. I need your whole paycheck. It's not that I need it. It's that what being successfully married looks like, considering that you want all of the benefits, is that you're going to have to be an equal contributor in some way, shape, or form. And we're not going to divide that by saying that you can do whatever it is that you want with your money. Everything goes into one pot, and that's a true economy of scale. But see, everybody don't want to do that because you want to live traditionally when it comes to the roles, but you don't want to live traditionally when it comes to the finances and responsibility because True economy of scale is that it all goes into one pot so that we can then divide it based off of what our needs are, and then we all going forward as far as what it is that we're trying to accomplish as a unit. But if I'm pulling you and you pulling the other way because you doing what you want to do instead of doing what it is that I've given you a vision for, then you don't then become the beneficiary of my greatness when I then get to a certain point in life. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you the truth. And this is the problem that we have in society today because they don't truly understand what being successfully married is. Successfully married is all encompassing. It's not just based off of love. It's not just based off of money. It's not just based off of children. It's not just based off of religion. It's based off of a mindset of understanding a vision that needs to be executed and everybody playing a part. Because let me just tell you something, just like in any job, just like in any organization, and just like for any team, one weak link can sink the whole thing, and that's the risk that you take. It can be beneficial. It can be exponentially beneficial if you truly understand what being successfully married is. And it could be incredibly burdensome on the other end of the spectrum if you don't. The only way this thing works is if everybody is on the same page. If you have one person that is not on the same page in a 2-person household, it then becomes 10 times more burdensome than 10 times more beneficial. It's the truth. It's the truth. That's a fact. We don't need to watch this whole video in order for me to give you the sauce. We just need it as a reference point in order for me to really be able to give you the understanding that you need so that you can make a better decision. It's not whether you should be single. It's not whether you should be married. It's if you decide to go down either path, I want you to have the understanding as to why you should or shouldn't do it. That's the game. That's the game. If she's not on your team, then you need to trade her in. If she 40 and she putting up a big zero, a big fat goose egg, trade her in for 220s. Oh, they don't like that part. Don't worry about it. Make sure you tune into the Q show tonight. If she 40 and she putting up a goose egg and she not actually adding value into your life, and please don't tell me the value that she brings is based off of when she open up her legs. We can get that from anywhere. If she 40 and she putting up a goose egg, a big fat zero when she get on the court, trade her in for 220s. You'll be happier at least as a result of it. It can't cost you too much more than what this goose egg is costing you. If she 40 and she putting up a goose egg, trade her in for 220s. You didn't hear that from me. You didn't hear that from me. Let me tell you something, man. If you don't consider this the most entertaining morning show on the face of the earth, you are absolutely, positively out of your mind.